Hello, and welcome back to another episode of The Monsters Within. It is so good to be back. Things have been rough and crazy, but it all circles back. So, today I wanted to talk with everybody about social media and mental illness. And today we're going to be talking with my partner, Angel, about this topic because when I brought it to his attention, he had quite a lot to say. So I thought everybody could hear what he has to say and what I have to say and make their decisions from there. I'm super excited to share this with you guys and welcome back. So, how are you doing today, Angel?
I'm good. What about yourself?
I'm pretty good, thank you. So, what mental illnesses do you suffer from, or what are you comfortable with talking about?
I suffer from general social anxiety and chronic depression, as well as a few others.
Okay, well, let's get to know a little bit about you. What are some future dreams or passions that you have?
I'm an aspiring writer. There is a story I have been working on for quite a few years already. I want to be a vet one day, hopefully own a company. I want to buy a house, and I like to play video games, read books. Oh god, I devour books.
Awesome, thank you. So, when I originally brought this topic up to you, you had a lot to say about it. So, why don't we start with the first question for you? What is your take on mental illness and social media as a whole?
That's a tough question to answer, but I think that together they work very well. It's giving us access to a lot of information that we wouldn't have otherwise when it comes to mental illness. But at the same time, there's cons to mixing mental illness and social media together because everybody is different. Everybody copes and deals with their mental illness differently. So a good coping habit that one person might have developed that is now on social media might not work for somebody else or might be detrimental instead of beneficial. But at the same time, there are people out there that might cope with their own mental illness the same way you do. So it can really be a double edged sword depending on how you view it. What about you? What do you think are some benefits to having access to millions of people all over the globe who suffer from the same mental illnesses that you do?
I believe that the pros are having access to people who understand your story, understand what you're struggling with, and it gives you a sense of camaraderie. No matter how far or wide the world is, you have access to these people in the most dire situations. So, for me personally, if I was having a really bad depressive episode, having access to my friends online allows me to know that I'm not alone and that I'm able to cope, and I have this online support system that I can rely on. All right, so then I have a question for you. What do you think are the cons of social media while suffering from mental illness?
Well, I think one of the cons is definitely the fact that it makes some things easier in such a way that it can make the bad days worse. Because it enables certain behaviors, such as the fact that right now in this day and age, you really don't have to leave the house in bigger cities too often if you really don't want to. Except for, of course, work, unless you can work from home. Because you can just open your phone, order your groceries, order your food, order your games, order whatever you want, pretty much brought right into your house without ever having to step foot outside. But every person works differently. Like for myself, I don't like people too much. So for me, going out is a lot more difficult. For people like you actually need the social interaction, which means this ease of access to everything in our lives makes it really hard for you to get that actual physical human interaction sometimes. So it can make things difficult because sometimes a little bit of human touch is all you need to feel better. Social media makes us feel so connected while yet sometimes you're so isolated.
You make a really valid point there. That's so hard for people like me to deal with. So, it's easier for you to be able to not interact with people because your anxiety makes it that much harder. But for me, I need to be around living bodies and, movement and people and social interactions. So I can definitely see where your point is.
Yeah. And how do you think the community as a whole can make social media safer for the next generations of mental health sufferers?
That's that's a hard question, but I believe that if we teach the right safety methods to the younger generation of knowing when it's okay to go onto social media but not listen to the feedback. If we teach them how to understand that everybody has a different opinion and not everybody is going to understand what you're going through, you don't need to worry about the people who don't understand. They're not what you need to be focusing on. What you need to be focusing on for helping the younger generation is creating a safe environment where kids, teenagers can come to really understand what's going on with their bodies and trying to give them the most factual details that we can so that there's no misconceptions. And that's going to be extraordinarily hard to do because there's always going to be somebody out there who thinks that you're just sad or you need to just relax because everything's okay. There's always going to be somebody like that out there. We need to teach the younger generation that the world is not a pleasant place, but it can be a wonderful place as long as you put the right people into your lives and understand that there's coping methods to deal with the people that are naysayers. With all that being said, do you have any hopes for the next generation of people who will suffer from mental illness?
Yes, I do have hope for the future generation because the world at large is becoming so much more accepting of mental health illnesses and everything else, and people are coming forward with their own stories, either to seek help or to set the story straight when it comes to certain illnesses. But it also means that they're becoming a lot more widely accepted, and that we're also changing in such a way that hopefully some of these mental illnesses will no longer affect people because there will no longer be the issue of being transgender being something evil or bad or anything else like that, or being in the closet. So people who grow up in the next few generations will no longer have to worry about being depressed or being bullied or PTSD or their scars left from things like that. And medication, I have friends who, without their medication, they are not okay. And I have other friends who don't take medication and they just have learned how to cope and deal with it. And I can respect both because for some people, medication works and some people it doesn't. But as we go along, medication is getting better, which means that more people can take it without having to suffer from side effects. Or the people who are currently taking it will be able to take medicine like antipsychotics, antidepressants, anything like that, and it will work a lot better without having to worry about any of the negative side effects coming into play. And hopefully, things like this podcast will also help people in the future, the next generation. And while we're on the topic, is there any advice you would like to give any new people who might have found your podcast by design or by accident?
So, to those of you that are tuning in, first off, I'm so glad you made it. And second, I hope that you find everything that I have to offer here informational. You are not alone. There are so many people out there who will have meaningful conversations with you and they will inspire you and move you forward and enlighten you and help you. So if you're here, you're on the right track. And I'm so happy to have you. Well, that's it for today. Thank you so much for coming on and having this conversation with me.
You're welcome.
Hey, everybody, don't forget to check out my links below that link all to my social media and my email address. Also, there will be a mailing list coming in soon, so keep your eyes peeled for that on my social media. And thank you so much for joining us.